This is Marcy Penner with Studio Calico, and I have a layout process video to share with you all today, and it's going to be based on these 3 photos I have of my boys in their Star Wars gear that was on Star Wars Day, May the 4th. So I went through the supplies that I had, and this month I also received the 4th of July cards, the extra journaling cards that were in the shop, and I am not American, so using some of these, although I will probably be using this one in like a travel book and stuff like that. It's not a set of cards that I'm going to jump to a lot, or that I would even typically buy, but I liked this large 4. So I thought that would work well with the 4th, the May 4th theme that I have going on. And so in addition to this card, I also pulled out some star embellishments and the daily flash from October afternoon, and then other things that had gold. So I have a piece of a doily, and then some of the chipboard diamonds and triangles with the gold foil on there, and then some labels and stuff. So I'm going to try to work those in. Another thing I wanted to use was this awesome die and stamp set that was in the shop as well. And I'm not sure if I know how to explain this, but the awesome title is cut out, and then it cuts out kind of a long line. So you're left with a large piece of paper if you cut it out that way, with the title kind of peeking out on top. So this is a shortened version of it. It extends past here, but I've just trimmed it off. So I wanted to try to use this in there as well with this stamp set. So that is where I'm going to start. And so these are my main elements. So I'm going to just start layering those and playing around with placement for those. Okay, so I like this awesome coming out of the photo, and I also like that the 2 pulled back shots are across from each other, and then the close-up is here, and I'm going to mirror that with this card in this corner. So that's going to be my basic layout. So I can either have the card fill that entire space, which I've done before, but I think this time I'm going to leave myself a little bit of room on the side to embellish. So if I can tuck this in, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to tuck this tag behind it to fill up that extra space so that I have a grid going on. Okay, so I'm going to trim the 4 card off, and I'm going to add probably, maybe totally in here a bunch of times, or You Are So probably would be best for this page. And then I'm going to have my main grid on the center. So now what I do is I'm going to decide whether or not I want a 12 by 12 page or 8.5 by 11. So if I would choose 8.5 by 11, it's looking like that's going to cover up most of my page, if not all my page. So when that happens, I either take an 8.5 by 11, pardon me, and I put this either on the top and leave the bottom empty, or vice versa, which would work. This is a 12 by 12 that I have already splattered some paint on. So I think I'm going to go 12 by 12 route. So this is drying a little bit, so I'm going to just start pulling out a couple things while I wait for that, and just move them around and see. If I have a lot of stuff happening here, I like to kind of echo that on the other side. So these are some of the printable labels that are also in the shop. A portion of the printables now are able to be cut out with the coordinating die, which I would grab, except I don't have it in front of me. So this one happened to be that. And then there was a stamp set in one of the add-ons that had the arrow numbers, And this is the digital version of that. So I have a 2 because 2 boys. So I'm going to probably add that down here. And then I want to include some of the stars. So I'm thinking I'm going to put one here, and then over here I will, once everything is down, I'm going to sew some rays and then add the stars over that. So that will happen last. And then I wanted to bring in some more of that gold. So if I have a lot of gold up there, I might bring in, let's see, this is already cut here, so I'm just going to continue that. And I might bring in a little bit of that gold down here as well. And probably something from here, I'm not too sure yet. But so I'm going to start here. I'm just going to trim that off. For some reason, trimming the journaling cards is a little scary for me. Okay, and then I'm going to add some pattern paper to the top and the bottom. So what I've pulled for that, I want to do, I think, mimicking this grid here, I want to make kind of like a patchwork, depending on how much room I have. So I pulled the black and white stripe, and then I pulled out some other papers that I thought would go. So obviously I pulled out 2 of the star papers from this month. So there's a smaller star and a larger star. And then some navy to go with the clothing in wood grain, because wood grain is always awesome. And some of these little bouquet bubbles that I thought might work. So those are the papers that I'm going to be leaning towards. So I think this is mostly dry. So now I'm going to go ahead and transfer this onto my 12 by 12. So this is never easy, but I think I'm probably going to center that. And then I'm going to start gluing stuff down. Actually going to pull it up a bit, I think. So maybe about there. When I tuck things under, I like to not make it perfect, so you'll see some things like a little higher than the other. So once I've glued down my main elements, which are my photos and any flat embellishments, and I usually move on to paper. So I'm just going to trim this one down and just tuck that in. I don't use a lot of glue, so tucking stuff in isn't too difficult. And then hopefully this comes together okay. Okay, so those are the main pieces of the page. So I'm going to now find that stamp. Okay, and I think I'm going to take the totally. And an acrylic block and just some black ink for now, I think. Black or the gray, but black should be fine. I'm just going to ink that up. And I'm going to stamp it on multiple times, I think. Okay. So now I'm going to take a pencil and I'm just going to lightly pencil in, I think, where I'm going to sew those rays, just so that when I get to them later, then I'll be ready and I'll just erase those later. So I think that will work. And so it looks like I'm not going to have a ton of room for that grid that I wanted to use. So I'm just going to do some strips, I think. I'm going to take the heavier blue and I'm going to use that at the bottom. I usually tend to put the heavier colors at the bottom and use the lighter ones at the top, pardon me. And I'm just going to take a thin piece of the black and white. This is a piece that I have already trimmed off, so it won't reach all the way. So I'm going to piece together, let's see, let's do a little bit of the wood grain. And again, this is a place where I like things to not be perfect, and I like them to be a bit of a different size than something else. So I'm going to make this piece stick past a bit. So that would be great. And I want to put one more down here. So I'm going to do, I'm going to do this little bit of pink, I think. That was not intentionally supposed to rhyme. So I'll take that one and I'm going to tuck it behind here. And that works for me. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these on. And then I'm also going to sew them down shortly. Okay, and then I will do the same for the top. And then I think I'll be ready for sewing and then adding any additional embellishments afterwards. I just want to make sure that I have a place for that little 2 arrow. And I think I may want to add one of these diamonds, but I want, I think, a triangle, and I'm going to want to put it pointing down, I think. Now this isn't my ideal, because although I'm going to have my stars and stuff here, it feels like everything is over there, but I don't have room for this here, but I think I'll have to make room. So okay, so I think I'm going to leave this arrow white just so it kind of falls back. Because I have a number for my title, I don't want there to be any confusion on what's going on. So and I like the yellow here with the black and white. So I think even once I sew that down, it'll be okay. And my stars, and I'm just going to see if I want to use anything from here. And I think I want to use this Oh Snap, but I don't want to stick it down. It just always scares me to stick stuff down right away. So I'm just going to put it on a piece of white cardstock and just trim it out, because I don't know where I want it yet. So actually that I think I like, so I'll stick it down there. And okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add my journaling and sew them down, and then I'm going to come finish up. Okay, so I have all my stitching done, and I'm just going to have to go ahead and trim all the multitude of threads that I have sticking out, and then I will go ahead and curl up my edges and add any last things that I wanted to do. So I've been pretty lucky without getting a ton of paper cuts doing this, but I like the added, kind of the added depth that it gives, and it kind of almost makes you want to touch the page, and I like that. So I'm just going to curl up photos a little bit, and in the end I took this label off and ran it through my typewriter with the May the 4th be with you little blurb. Okay, so now I've got my eraser, and I'm going to go ahead and erase my pencil lines. I have gold thread that I tried to find, but I couldn't locate it, so I just had to go ahead with the white and just be fine with that. So I'm going to trim these just a little bit closer. I don't mind straggly threads on some things, but when it's part of near a photo or part of an element that's kind of important, then I trim them off a little bit. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick them off with my X-Acto knife once I figure out what sizes I want. I'll do a small one here by the journaling so it doesn't take up a ton of room. And I won't go small, big, because that's too organized for me. So I'm going to stick a big one in here, and a small one here, and a big one here. Okay, and I like that, and just to unify it with what's going on down here, I'm going to stick a small one in the corner of this label. I wouldn't, except that when I typed it, I left too much room on this side, so that's a good opportunity for me to fill that space with something. And I think I'm going to add just a couple of the small enamel dots. These are from the Color Theory line, but they also came in one of the Project Life kits this month. So I'm just going to sneak a small one in there. And I think that I will call this one done. So I hope that gave you maybe an idea of looking at the journaling cards in a different way. If a set maybe isn't exactly how you would think it to be, you can tweak that. Now, whether this would be in your Project Life spread as a pocket, you could use it in many ways other than the 4th of July. Some of the cards obviously are going to take a little more thinking about, but I mean, for example, this one could be used in a travel album and stuff like that. So there's different way of looking at them, and I'm happy that I made this one work on a spread of my kids, which probably isn't a typical use for that card. So thank you for watching, and be sure to check out the rest of the Studio Calico gallery for more inspiration.